I remember the first time I saw him. He smelled like leather and coffee and something else, something heavy that humans carry, but dogs can only sense. Sadness, maybe. Loneliness, definitely. He stood in the driveway of the biggest house I'd ever seen, and he looked down at me with those narrow eyes that had stared down 1,000 bad guys on movie screens, and I knew this human needed me. My name is Duke, at least that's what he calls me now. Before, I was just another dog at the shelter, another mouth to feed, another heartbeat waiting for someone to choose me. I was 2 years old when Clint Eastwood walked into that Monterey County shelter in 2009, and I was 7 months into my second chance at life after being found wandering. Highway 1, alone and hungry. He didn't smile when he saw me. Clint doesn't smile much. I've learned, but his eyes softened. Just a fraction, just enough. He knelt down, which I could tell hurt his knees even then, and extended his hand. I sniffed it. Gun oil, coffee, that sadness smell again. But underneath it all, something good. Something worth staying for. This one, he told the shelter worker. I'll take this one. That was April 2009, and Clint Eastwood was 78 years old, one of the richest men in Hollywood, living alone in a ranch worth more money than most humans will see in their lifetimes. He just separated from his second wife, Dina, for the first time. His children, from previous relationships, were scattered across the country, busy with their own lives. And he was directing Gran Torino, the film about an angry old man learning to connect with people after a lifetime of isolation. Art imitating life, they say. I wouldn't know about art, but I know about life. And I know that the man who took me home that day was hurting in ways that money couldn't fix. Success couldn't ease, and fame only made worse. If you love stories about the unbreakable bonds between humans and their animals, you're in the right place. Subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. We share incredible true stories every week about famous figures and the pets who saw them at their most vulnerable. Don't miss out on these touching stories. Subscribe now. The ranch was overwhelming at first. 200 acres of rolling California hills, ocean views, more space than I knew what to do with. But it was quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that presses down on you, that makes every sound echo, that reminds you how alone you are. Clint gave me a tour that first day, his hand resting on my head as we walked. "This is home now," he said in that gravelly voice. "Just you and me, Duke. Think we can figure this out?" I wagged my tail. Of course we could figure it out. Dogs always figure it out. That's what we do. The first few weeks I learned Clint's routines. He woke early before sunrise and made coffee that smelled bitter and strong. He'd stand at the kitchen window staring at nothing, holding that cup like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. Then we'd walk, long, slow walks around the property, Clint moving with the careful deliberateness of someone whose body had been through too many stunts, too many years of punishment. He didn't talk much during those walks. Sometimes he'd point things out. "That's where we'll need to fix the fence, or see that hawk. Been hunting here for years," but mostly he was silent, lost in thoughts I couldn't access, but could feel pressing down on him like weight. I learned to read his moods by scent and posture. When his shoulders hunched forward, he was thinking about his ex-wife and the mess of the separation. When his jaw clenched, he was angry about something in the news or in Hollywood. When his eyes went distant and unfocused, he was remembering things from long ago, things that still hurt. And I learned that my job wasn't to fix any of it. Dogs can't fix human problems, but to be present, to press against his leg when he stood too long staring at nothing, to bring him my ball when the silence got too heavy, to exist as proof that he wasn't completely alone, even when he felt like he was. Those first years, 2009 to 2011, were what I now think of as the pretending years. Clint pretended he was fine, pretended the separation from Dina didn't bother him, pretended he preferred solitude, pretended that having millions of dollars and a legendary career was enough. But I knew better. Dogs always know. He'd reconcile with Dinah briefly in 2009, try to make it work, and I'd feel his hope, a lightening of that heavy sadness smell, a spring in his step that hadn't been there before. But it never lasted. By 2012, They were separated again, this time for good, and Clint retreated deeper into himself. I watched him direct films during this period. Invictus, Hereafter, J. Edgar. He'd leave early in the morning for set, sometimes taking me along, and I'd see him transform. On set, he was the boss, commanding, efficient, respected. People jumped when he spoke. The crew moved like a well-oiled machine around him. But then we'd come home to the empty ranch, and he'd shrink back into himself. The command would drain away, leaving just a tired old man eating dinner alone, staring at his phone like he was waiting for someone to call, someone who never did. What do you think, Duke? He'd ask me some nights, his dinner half-eaten, his eyes on the darkening windows. You think I traded the wrong things for success? You think I should have spent less time making movies and more time making relationships? I'd put my head on his knee, my answer to everything, and he'd scratch behind my ears. And for a moment, the sadness smell would lighten just a little. The divorce from Dina was finalized in 2014, when Clint was 84 years old. By then, I was 7, middle-aged and dog years, graying around my muzzle like Clint was gray around his temples. We were aging together, both of us slower than we used to be, both of us carrying weight we'd accumulated over years. The divorce was ugly. I didn't understand the specifics. Dogs don't understand lawyers or money or custody agreements, but I understood that Clint was hurting. The sadness smell became constant, mixed with anger smell and something sharper, humiliation. He'd lived his life so privately, kept his personal business so guarded, and now it was being aired in tabloids and court documents. His children visited more during this time. I met them all eventually. 6 kids from different relationships. All adults now, all trying to navigate their complicated relationships, with a father who'd never quite learned how to show love in conventional ways. I liked them. They smelled like Clint, family smell, connection smell, but also like their own separate lives, separate worlds. They'd visit the ranch, spend a few hours, then leave again. And Clint would watch them go with this look on his face, this mixture of love and regret that I felt in my chest like an ache. I wasn't there enough, he told me one night after his daughter Morgan left. When they were kids, I was always working, always chasing the next role, the next film. Thought I was providing for them, but what I was really doing was abandoning them. They turned out okay despite me, not because of me. I licked his hand. It's what I did when words failed, which being a dog was always. The years between 2014 and 2016 were the hardest. I witnessed. Clint was in his mid-80s, wealthy beyond measure. His net worth was reported in the hundreds of millions, but profoundly isolated. He'd go days without talking to another human except for brief exchanges with his housekeeper or groundskeeper. His only consistent company was me. We developed deeper routines during this time. Morning walks became sacred. The same path every day, the same pace, the same stops at the same spots where Clint would stand and look at the ocean and think whatever. Thoughts old men think about mortality and legacy and time running out. Afternoons he'd work in his study, reading scripts, taking business calls, managing his production company. I'd sleep under his desk, my body pressed against his feet, and I could feel the tension in him through that contact. The way his foot would tap when he was anxious, the way he'd shift weight when he was frustrated, the way he'd go completely still when he was overwhelmed. Evenings were the worst. That's when the loneliness hit hardest, when the big empty house felt emptiest, when Clint would sit on the back porch with a glass of whiskey and stare at the sunset like he was watching his life disappear beyond the horizon. You know what money buys you, Duke? He asked me one evening, his voice slightly slurred from the whiskey. Nothing that matters. Can't buy you more time. Can't buy you real friends. Just people who want something from you. Can't buy you family that actually wants to spend time with you. Can't buy you connection. All it buys is comfort while you're lonely. And I've got more comfort than any man needs and more loneliness than any man deserves. I moved closer, pressing my full weight against his leg. It's what I did when the sadness smell got too strong, when I worried he might disappear into it completely. His hand found my head, fingers working through my fur with the automatic motion of 7 years of practice. At least I've got you, he whispered. At least you don't care about the money or the movies or any of it. You'd love me just the same if I was broke and living in a trailer. Wouldn't you? I would. Dogs don't love conditionally. It's not in our nature. In 2015, something shifted. Clint started reaching out more, calling his kids more frequently, accepting social invitations he'd normally decline, making an effort to connect, even though it clearly didn't come naturally to him. I noticed because our routines changed slightly. More visitors came to the ranch, more cars in the driveway, more voices and laughter, and life in the house that had been so silent for so long. His son, Scott, visited often, sometimes bringing his own family. I liked Scott. He had Clint's quiet intensity, but more warmth, more openness. He'd throw my ball for me while talking to his father, and I'd watch Clint watch his son, and I'd smell something new, hope smell mixed with regret, mixed with desperate desire to fix things that might be too broken to fix. I'm trying. Clint told Scott one afternoon while I retrieved my ball for the 100th time. I know it's late. I know I should have done this decades ago, but I'm trying to be more present, more available, more like a father should be. Scott squeezed his shoulder. Better late than never, Dad, we're here. We want this too. Watching them, I felt Clint's relief like a physical thing. That heavy sadness smell, lightening just a fraction, just enough to notice. But progress wasn't linear. There were still hard days, hard weeks. When Clint retreated back into isolation, when the effort of connecting seemed too exhausting, when old habits pulled him back into solitary silence, those were the days I worked hardest, bringing him my ball insistently until he'd throw it just to get me to leave him alone, pressing against him until he'd pet me just to satisfy me, existing so obviously and persistently that he couldn't ignore me, couldn't sink completely into the darkness. If you're moved by Duke's story and want to hear more about the incredible bonds between celebrities and their loyal companions, please subscribe to our channel. We share these deeply personal, touching stories every week. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Your support helps us continue bringing these amazing stories to life. In 2016, I turned 9 years old for a German Shepherd mix. Though Clint insisted I had lab in me too. For the friendly disposition, my hips were starting to bother me. Arthritis setting in the way it does for big dogs. Clint noticed immediately. "You're limping," he said, his voice sharp with concern as we finished our morning walk. "How long has that been going on?" I wasn't limping much, just a little stiffness after lying down too long. But Clint was on it immediately. Vet appointment, X-rays, diagnosis of hip dysplasia, treatment plan. He spared no expense. Custom orthopedic bed, joint supplements, pain medication, physical therapy. Money might not buy happiness, he told the vet, but it can damn well buy the best care for my dog. I appreciated it, of course. The pain medication helped, but what helped more was watching Clint care for me with an intensity and tenderness he rarely showed. He'd massage my hips every morning, his strong hands working the tight muscles with practiced gentleness. He'd help me up when I struggled to stand. He'd slow our walks to match my pace, instead of expecting me to keep up with his. "We're getting old together. A buddy," he said one morning, both of us moving slowly through our routine, both falling apart. "But at least we've got each other, right?" "Right, always right." That's what I was here for, to make sure he wasn't alone through the falling apart.